Needless to say, I'm pretty excited about today's show on the Athletic Football Show. We've never done this before. I think we've probably done some version of it that's been a little bit less official. You know, there are years in the past, Dave, where I've done shows about which teams can win the Super Bowl, but we kind of do it as like a half-hearted exercise on August 12th, and we don't stick with it. Like, you're not held to it in any way. It has no staying power. The point of today's exercise is something that we're going to try to carry throughout the season. This is going to be a living, breathing document about the teams we believe have a realistic shot to win a championship this year and who has what we're calling a seat at the table.
I'm simultaneously excited, but also dreading it a little bit for that very reason, because this is going to live with us for the entire football season. And who knows, maybe we'll regret something we say today 2 weeks into the episode, or 2 weeks into the season. Maybe, it'll be tough to make these calls about when it's time to inject a new team into the conversation or take one out. And I fear accountability, I guess is what I'm saying. But it's going to be good for the show in the long run. I'm excited to do it.
The goal here, Derek, is that, like Dave alluded to, if we get to like week 4 or 5, and there's a team that we did not have in our original 10, and that's what we're going to land on here is 10 teams. And all three of us, any three of us at any point during any of the shows that we're doing can kind of raise a hand and say that the committee has to come to the table and figure out if we're including a new team. So I'm very much looking forward to this. Maybe we'll have some sort of like bell we can ring or button we can press where an alarm goes off. We'll do something stupid when it comes time to celebrate the addition of one of these conversations as we get into the season.
Don't give me an alarm sound, because I'll just ring it for the fun of it, just to see how many times I can get away with it. I'm very excited for this exercise, because I think going in, I thought I was going to be very excited about, like, man, how do I build the case for all these teams? And then I actually started doing the exercise, and I was just like, how do I build the case against all of these teams and whittle down the list? Which, I don't know. I feel like that said a lot about me as a person, which I thought was maybe a little bit terrifying.
I want to talk through the process of how we got to the number a little bit. When we first came to this idea in mid-July, when the three of us were sitting around my kitchen table with Beller thinking about some of the things we wanted to do this season. And we were like, all right, what's the right number of teams? And you kind of have a gut feeling about what you think is correct. Like 16 is too many, right? Like there aren't 16 real contenders coming into the year. 12, probably still too many. Like if you have 12, you don't have to make any hard cuts. And the entire point of this is that it should be difficult to whittle it down to the final list of teams. And then so we're like, all right, is 8 the right number? But 8 is too small of a number. Like you're going to have to leave off teams with 8 that are kind of unacceptable to have off of an exercise like this. So Dave, eventually we landed on 10 to be the correct number, because it's a small enough group where it feels special, but it's a big enough group where we're not going to show our ass by not including a team that eventually wins the Super Bowl in February.
You say that now, but I'm just thinking about some of the teams that made the playoffs last year, and one team in particular that made it to the NFC Championship game. I mean, I know that game was lopsided, but you never can completely predict the twists and turns of a season and who we're going to wind up talking about as we go along. But I'm with you. I think 8 would be painfully easy, because it's like once you get done with the real deal contenders, you're halfway there and you can fill it out as you go. 10, I think 10 is going to give us a real chance to argue, which is a lot of fun for me, because when we were talking about this in pre-production, I already had a team that you didn't even put on your initial list. So I think there will be a good chance for some back and forth here with 10. I think it's the right number.
See, 10 to me felt like, again, and maybe this is a little bit insight into the way I think about things. 10 to me felt like the right number, because we go into the playoffs now with 14 teams. And every year there's 3 or 4 teams where I'm just like, no shot. Yeah. Why are they here? Why are they even in the dance? Like, what is the point of this?
This is a great justification of the science behind our stupid exercise that actually includes no real science whatsoever. I appreciate this. All right, let's dig into it. So here's what we're going to do. This is going to be a consensus, right? Like all three of us have to agree on all of the teams that we're going to include here. So I felt like the easiest way to kick this off was just to start with the teams that are kind of no-brainers. Like as we move into the 2025 season, we know all of these teams have a seat at the table. They are legitimate contenders as we get into mid-August here in the heart of training camp. So Dave, these are the 5 teams that I'm just going to throw in and say we don't really have to do a lot of talking about them. The Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champions who bring back a huge part of their roster. I think they probably deserve to be included here. The Chiefs, who went to the Super Bowl last year and go to the Super Bowl seemingly every year, so I would assume they're thrown into the contender bucket. The Bills and Ravens, both of whom had championship caliber rosters last year, I think at times felt like the best teams in football for stretches of last season, even if they fell short in the playoffs. And the other team I'm going to throw out, even with all of the turnover on the offensive line, at both coordinator spots, I still think the amount of truly excellent players they have, plus the earned equity they've built over the last couple years, we're going to throw the Detroit Lions in here as well. So among those 5 teams, Dave, is there anyone that you think doesn't deserve this like automatic inclusion, or do you feel pretty good about those 5?
I don't want to push back too hard because ultimately I came down the way that you did. I wrote it down in my notes where I was like, look, the talent on the Lions roster is still really impressive. Dan Campbell has earned the right for me to trust that he can handle the coaching turnover. And if there are hiccups along the way, I also trust Dan Campbell to navigate it. So at the end of the day, I come down agreeing with you where I'm fine throwing the Lions into this category. But would you agree with me that there's probably like a little bit of a line break between those other 4 and the Lions?
Yes.
Like, I am more confident in the first 4 that you named, Bills, Ravens, Chiefs, Eagles. I'm much more confident in those teams than I am in the Lions, just because the Lions have enough turnover in personnel. They have enough question marks with players coming back from injury or losing players to injury. The coaching aspect of it is huge. And they play in an incredibly competitive division. I'm fine putting them here, but I just don't feel as rock solid about them as a contender. I feel fine saying the Lions are a playoff team, but if we're supposed to be talking about teams that can really win a championship, I do think the Lions are at least a rung below the other 4, but I'm still fine putting them in this category.
So that's kind of where I land here. Even if they're a rung below the other 4, we're not going to not include them in the top 10. Like, there's nothing to really argue about with the Lions, even if we have concerns. And I do have concerns, but this is something we'll dig into. We're going to start division previews, I believe, a week from today. We're running this on Wednesday, the 13th. I believe next Wednesday, August 20th, is our first division preview. We're going to have a very deep, considered, layered Lions conversation about what we can actually expect from this team. So I don't want to super step on that. I have my concerns. I have my issues with some of the turnover. I do think that what they can be on defense from a talent perspective can kind of overshadow some of these offensive concerns. So even if I think you have to squint a little bit more with the Lions, I'm fine throwing him in here, Derek.
Yeah, they're a team where I think you, for the other 4, could reasonably rank those as the best 4 chances to win the Super Bowl going in, like those 4 teams. Whereas the Lions, I'd probably, if I were to rank all of these teams 1 to 10, would probably put them closer to 7 or 8. But again, I think it would be pretty unreasonable to put them outside of the list entirely. Like, earned equity is the right word. Even if I have so many questions, it's like, they still have the quarterback and the head coach, and they just won like 15 games. They're probably going to be pretty good again.
Yes, and I think there are more questions when it comes to just turnover at specific and important spots with the Lions than a lot of the other teams on this list, but I think the roster talent is so overwhelming, and what they were at their best last year, the best case scenario for this team is the best team in football, full stop. Like, if John Morton's a good offensive coordinator, if Kelvin Shepard is good at this, if the offensive line is 85% of it was last year, this can still be the best team in the NFC again. So even if there are more questions, I still feel like an upside we have realized for this team in stretches in the past, that's why it's kind of easy for me to write them in and just move on to the rest.
I think that's fair.
All right. So let's dig through these other teams. What we're going to do is, after establishing those 5 consensus teams, is I'm just going to go one by one here, and we're going to talk through the other candidates, the other contenders for a seat at the table here. This is pretty much just going in order of Super Bowl odds. So there's nothing overly complicated about why I'm listing the teams in the order I'm listing them. That's kind of why we're doing it the way that we're doing it. So let's start with the San Francisco 49ers. Derek, do you believe, coming off of last year, that the San Francisco 49ers deserve a seat at the table heading into the season?
I would still give them a seat at the table. Because I think at the end of the day, if you just tell me that Kyle Shanahan is going into the season with the same quarterback, a quarterback who I believe to be better now than he was like at this time a year ago, you still have maybe the best tight end in the league. Like, I just, The offense, the floor feels like the 10th best in the league, which is basically kind of what they were last year with 100 things going wrong. And then I've said enough times on this show that I think the defense will be uh it'll be fine. I don't think it's going to be a great unit, but I think it'll be solid. So them to me is just, I don't know. Kyle Shanahan, you always have a seat.
Dave, if you a couple weeks ago we did the half baked take show, and your half baked take about the Niners was you're just not going to overthink it. Like this is an 11-win playoff team. That's a half baked take. I'm holding you to this now. Are you willing to make it a fully baked opinion here about a week or two later about the Niners?
I had a chance to leave that take in the oven, and I feel just fine with it, honestly. So I know this isn't a consensus list, but I made my own personal 10 just to reference while we talk through this. I put the 49ers at 8 in my personal in Dave Hellman's table. It's easy to imagine this version of the 49ers still winning 11, maybe even 12 or 13 games. And like, yeah, I don't need to rehash what Derek just said, but I agree with all of that. Again, earned equity of what Kyle Shanahan can do, earned equity that Robert Saleh knows how to get the most out of a defense, even if his Jets teams weren't always that good. And I keep bringing this up, and I'm sorry if it's repetitive. I know you can't completely project a schedule ahead of time, but this is a very favorable schedule for a team with San Francisco's roster. Obviously, it is a very tough division, but they play 7 of the teams that picked in the top 10 of the draft this year.
They finished last place in their division last year.
That's what I'm saying.
They have a last place schedule.
It's a hell of a leg up, and it's part of why the 49ers do these crazy bounces. Like the years where it all goes wrong, they usually bounce back in a big way because they benefit from playing an easier schedule than a team with their talent should. I think they're going to benefit from that again. So give a team with this talent and this coaching that type of slate. Yes, I think they belong on this list, and I didn't really stress that much about it.
There are probably more fragile aspects of their offense than there have been in years past where we could just pencil them in as one of the best 3 or 4 offenses in the league. Like, even if they stay healthier this year, Derek, Ricky Pearsall, we didn't see for much of last season. They're going to be relying on him in a big way, especially before Brandon Ayuk comes back. Christian McCaffrey is healthy, right? He's healthy coming into the season, but I don't know. Color me skeptical that I could just rely on that at this point. I know that for the most part, he's been much less injury prone in recent years than he had been during stretches in Carolina. And last year, he came into the season banged up. Like, this isn't a situation where on August 12th of last year, they were like, oh yeah, he's fine. He was already hurt. And so the fact that he's coming into this camp healthy, there's reason to believe they're going to be able to rely on Christian McCaffrey this year. And while I think the offensive line is shaky at best, it's kind of always what it is. And I know Trent Williams is a year older, and maybe there's a chance the cliff comes for Trent Williams or he struggles to stay healthy again this year. But I just think most of the paths, if this team isn't decimated by injury again, end with this being a top 10 offense in San Francisco. And if that's the case, we know a defense can have 1 or 2, 3 breaks and put a team in contention that's built like that.
Yeah, I think it's just like, again, we might not see the top 2 or 3 version of the offense that we've gotten at certain points where they're scoring 32 points a game. But like, if the floor last year was 9th and Christian McCaffrey is 10 to 15% better than he was last year, and Pearsall is any degree better in year 2, like, why would this not be better than it was last year? Which was, again, a really good offense that kept them in a lot of games, and a lot of games that they lost by like pretty close margins. Like, this was a 6-11 team, but it's not like they were getting hammered in a lot of these games.
No, I think that there is enough. There's reason to believe that enough of the breaks that didn't go their way last year may go their way this year, and we'll see a much better version of this team. So the Niners are in. The Niners have a seat at the table despite what 2024 looked like. This one I feel like is going to be a little tougher, even though their Super Bowl odds, I believe, are better than the Niners' Super Bowl odds. The Cincinnati Bengals, David.
Oh.
In your mind, do the Cincinnati Bengals have a seat at the table?
I'm expecting pushback on this, but I firmly have them at the table, and I can hear people laughing at me. If you don't agree, that's fine. I cannot quit them. And more important than not like that I can't, I won't. I will not do that. I'm sorry. I know that it is about more than quarterback play and gaudy offensive stats, but you cannot expect me to write off a team with a quarterback that played at an MVP level and all of the talent that he has around him. And that's what Joe Burrow was. I'm not saying he should have won MVP, but Joe Burrow played at an MVP level last year. At worst, he's the 4th best quarterback in the NFL. We did a whole show about it where we didn't even bother discussing Joe Burrow because he's that good. All I need is for the defense to be below average. I don't even like we've done this before. Like I just need him to be like 23rd best in the league. And this is a 10 or 11 win team because they went 9-8 with a bottom 5 defense. Just to rehash, guys, Cincinnati went 4-4 in games where they scored 30 points last year. That is preposterous. And what are the odds that it happens 2 years in a row? I get it.
I've seen that roster. I don't know. It might happen again.
The irony that I'm making this case a few days after their first string defense got decimated by the Eagles backups in the preseason, I get it. I don't have a lot of optimism for the defense being good either, but I will ride with an MVP caliber quarterback and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and all that good stuff. I'll ride with it every time. And if I look silly again this year, then I'll just have to deal with it. But I'm not giving up on that type of firepower.
I'm curious where you land on this, Derek.
So they're the team I had the weirdest experience with because I've talked about how much this entire offseason I don't like the defense. I think they could be bottom 5 again. All this other stuff. Like, I'm not even 100% sure I feel like they're a playoff lock. But kind of like I was talking at the top of the show, I feel like I went through my list of like, I don't trust that about this team. Ooh, that looks stinky. Ooh, I don't know if this team has enough firepower. And I landed myself where I got with the Bengals and I was like, there's only like 7 teams I actually feel great about. And if I don't feel great about the rest, at least the Bengals have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And that was kind of where I landed. So they were a team that I thought I was going to be closer to like, are they the 10th on the fringe type of team? But I actually weirdly felt comfortable putting them at the table.
I think every team we're going to talk about here, outside of those consensus 5 that we just mentioned, there's some huge question mark, right? Even the teams that I think have fewer roster holes than the Bengals, the Packers, for example. There's still a question mark about whether this can all come together. I mean, I just spent the entire day in Green Bay. I was talking to Matt Schneidman, our beat reporter there, and you guys will hear that show a little bit later this week if you listen to the Beat Writer Notebooks on Saturday. The entire conversation was essentially just me talking through my existential issues with the Green Bay Packers and how like they're like this theoretical object that it's like, well, of course this should happen, right? It should happen. Look at all this stuff. But until it happens, it's just hard to totally get behind. We'll talk about the Packers in a second. But it's either that kind of team or other teams that there's a roster hole here, there's a roster hole there. Like the Chargers, it's like, look at the offensive line, like the state of the offensive line. Who are their difference makers on defense? Like with Washington, who are their difference makers on defense? Every team we're going to talk about here is imperfect. I'm willing to put the Bengals in here because even if they are an imperfect team and they have a long, long way to go on defense, among all the other teams we're about to talk about, is there a unit among these like 18 that you feel better about heading into this season than the Cincinnati Bengals offense?
Not many.
Not really. And that was, I think, why I had the weird experience with them because I think there's a chance that the defense is so bad that during the regular season, it might make it hard to win enough games to like really get a good spot in the playoffs. But I mean, if they get there, you have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and they can score 30 points a game in a playoff game.
That was actually my biggest deciding factor when I did this is we're going to talk about some teams where it's like, okay, they could win 10, 11 games. They could be really good, but can I imagine them winning 3 games in a row, potentially on the road to get to the Super Bowl? Can I picture that happening? And with a few of these teams, I was like, not really. With the Bengals, I absolutely can picture that. I can picture them doing that with vivid clarity. We've seen them do it before. Granted, I'm well aware the Bengals defense carried them through the 2021 playoffs, but when you have Burrow and those guys playing at the level we've seen in recent years, you can picture it. And you just need the defense to do a little bit of work. That's what it makes me laugh. The Bengals are going to step on themselves 3 times this year, and I'm going to catch hell for believing in them. But I don't care. If they get in the dance, they will be one of those teams that everybody views as incredibly dangerous because there just aren't many teams that can bring what they do to the table on offense.
This is always a dangerous thing to say. And I'm not even going to fully say it. There's a temptation with the Bengals defense to say it couldn't be worse. It could be worse. It could always be worse. But
it sure can.
if you look at the construction of this group and the defensive line specifically, and you just think about all the guys they were missing last year, Sheldon Rankins just didn't play, right? And so they at least went out and got TJ Slayton this year. Chris Jenkins is somebody that his name came up multiple times this weekend when I was talking to Zach Taylor, when I was talking to Al Golden. Like, who among those young defensive players do we think has progressed? And I think Chris Jenkins is somebody they were excited about. So a lot of the young pieces who maybe weren't contributors last year, maybe they take a small step forward. We don't need like gangbusters production from this side of the ball. We need like merely bad. And I think the Bengals deserve a spot in this conversation. And I am open-minded enough to believe that we can get to merely bad with the Bengals defense.
I still struggle with that, but we'll see when we start playing games.
Yeah. Remind me at like 3:30 in the afternoon in week 2 when they're just getting sliced and diced by, I don't even know who they play, but they'll probably get murdered by whoever they play. And I'll have to think about this again. But right now in August, I think they can be merely bad.
No, that's why the Bengals are the most annoying, actually, is because in September, you don't know what the Bengals are. You have to get to Halloween to know what the Bengals are, because they're like every year they've been bad in September, regardless of whatever we want to say about them.
But they played the starters in the preseason and they looked great. So that's my
They've
copium.
turned a new leaf. Yeah.
My copium is that's going to matter and that they're going to score 30 points in week 1.
The offensive starters looked great.
Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that, Robert. I know.
It's one of those moments. I was there like 2 days after they played that preseason game against the Eagles, and there was almost like an apologetic tone from people being like, well, we didn't do anything in that game. We were really vanilla in that game. It's like, guys, I don't give about what the defense looks like in the preseason game. Like, you don't have to apologize to me about how that just went. But it's just funny that even in the preseason, there's kind of like it's like when you meet a significant other's like friend and like that person comes off really badly and they're just like, I promise that Tracy is not like that all the time. Like, I'm really sorry. Like, I understand that was bad, but I promise you that's not how it goes.
I actually love hearing that, because I know the cliche is that you want guys to block out the noise and everything, but everybody in that building should be well aware that like that can't happen. It's the only thing stopping you from being a Super Bowl contender. That's what we're talking about. Everybody in the building should be alarmed and trying to have the defense be better. So good for them for at least having urgency.
The one other thing I'll say about the offense for Cincinnati, I think they have a chance to be better personnel-wise on offense this year than they were last year. Because the guard play, there are questions about the guards this year, right? Cody Ford and Lucas Patrick at right guard. You have a third-round rookie stepping in at left guard. That's a situation where I actually do feel pretty confident saying it couldn't be worse. It couldn't be worse than it was last year.
That one I can buy more, actually, yes.
So even if you have a rookie and a competition at right guard, I still feel like that combined with Amarius Mims being healthy at right tackle for the entire season, I just think that there is a chance, Chase Brown being the starting running back from day one, them being able to construct the running game around his strengths versus whatever they were doing last year at this time. So there is a real chance the Bengals are the best offense in football, full stop. And that just demands a lot less of your defense. So I think there's a clearer path for them to get there than almost any of the other teams we're going to talk about. And that's why I feel like I'm fine throwing them in here. All right, next one here. I feel like this one is going to be an interesting discussion. The Washington Commanders, who have the same Super Bowl odds as the Bengals. Dave, I see the pain on your face already. Do you think the Washington Commanders deserve a seat at the table heading into the season?
Not even against my better judgment. That's not how I want to phrase it. I'm taking a gamble and I'm saying yes, but it goes against my belief in what this team is in totality, right? Like, we've done shows about this. I've already expressed my concern about Washington's roster. The average age is 29. The average age of their starters is even older. You are asking for significant returns from Zach Ertz, Bobby Wagner. Marshawn Lattimore is only like 29, but he is a cornerback. So that, 29 for a cornerback is like 33 for any other position. Von Miller is hopefully going to do something for this team. Terry McLaurin still not practicing as we record this right now. I don't like a lot of stuff about this team. I don't like that they went 7-2 in one-score games last year, which is typically a sign that you should look for regression the next year. I don't like their strength of schedule. I could keep going about things that I don't like, but ultimately, I like Jaden Daniels that much. And that's what it comes down to for me, where if Jaden Daniels is awesome, then none of that might matter. And he could be the type of guy that could carry an effort like that. And I thought that a month and a half ago, but now that we've had a long period of training camp, every time I check in on what's going on in Ashburn, people are talking in like reverent tones about what Jaden Daniels is doing. And I know you got to take training camp with a grain of salt, but when everybody from the beat writers to the national people that stop by for a couple of days to the broadcasters that do the preseason games, like when everybody's saying the same stuff about how he's performing, that starts to carry weight with me, where I'm like, okay, maybe this guy really can just will the Commanders back to a 12-win season. Like maybe he really is going to take that step. I'm not all the way there, but that is ultimately what led me to think that they belong here.
Aside from whatever the impressions are of the people who are at practice, I think they're kind of treating it that way in Washington. Like just as a foregone conclusion that like, hey, he's just one of the guys. Like he's one of those guys. We have one of those guys. And in hearing how they approach personnel this offseason, where they go out, they add offensive linemen. You know, they go out and get Debo, but like Debo was available for a 5th-round pick. It's not a huge swing in terms of resources overall. The big swings they made, the trade for Tunsil, drafting a tackle in the 1st round, is we are going to make sure, come hell or high water, that we protect this quarterback. Because if you look around the league and you look at the great quarterbacks, as long as they're protected, they can lift the pass catchers. That's true of Josh Allen. But for that to make sense in Washington, Jaden Daniels needs to be as good as Josh Allen. And I think them kind of following that sort of model tells you everything you need to know about what type of quarterback they think Jaden Daniels is. The question is whether or not that's warranted.
See, this is the team I have.
I knew
I don't
you were
even
gonna
have
be
a
in
full
pain
answer
over
right now.
this.
And it's actually, I am going to be a pain over this.
No, in pain. I said in pain.
Yes. Well, it's going to be both. I have like the Jaden Daniels part of this. I know I was skeptical-ish for a long time. That is like the part of this I am least thinking about. It's every other part of this roster. I still really don't like the defense. I think the front could be kind of stinky, and I'm a little bit scared of the pass rush a little bit. And I'm still a little bit worried about a lot of interior pieces that I think have a little bit more to prove in terms of the young players and signing Javon Kinlaw the way that they did. There's a chance the secondary is much improved, and that kind of throws that out of the window, and they become a pretty solid unit. But that, to me, I'm also a little bit in wait-and-see mode with that. The offense is a really tough one for me to get a handle on, because I think Jaden Daniels is very good, and I think that there's a chance that because he never turns the ball over and also does what he does as a scrambler, he brings you such a high floor. The Terry thing, even though that'll probably get done, scares me a little bit. I think Deebo Samuel is not really a player that we can fully rely on moving forward. And then like the Sam Cosmi of it all kind of trips me out. They don't really have anything at tight end. Like I know Zach Ertz was productive last year, but he's only productive insofar as like he's catching a lot of 6-yard passes, which to me is not that scary. All of that being said, and this is very bad process, if there's anything that might get me to say yes, that they deserve a seat, Josh Connerly looks unbelievable. He looked so good in that first preseason game that I was like, all right, dude, if he's going to be one of those, then maybe I can start to sell myself. But I'm still like, I'm on the fence with this one still.
It's really hard because I think there were enough high volatility aspects to who they were last year that if you're looking at those numbers, you could be like, come on, right? Like that's
like
that
the
stuff
fourth
just,
down stuff. Like,
so I'm looking at those numbers right now. That's literally what I was just looking at.
Yeah.
What percentage of the Commanders' 4th downs do you think that they converted last year?
dude, it's like 95. It's like all of them.
It's 87%.
That's obscene.
So
That's obscene.
they were 20 of 23 on 4th down last year. The league average on 4th down last year was 57%. They were at 87%. There were 4 teams above 70%. That's it. And they were at 87. So
who were the other teams, Robert? Do you know?
Eagles.
The very good teams. The Bills, the Chiefs, and the Eagles. So that's another thing.
Our
right?
locks, yeah.
If those are the locks. And I think the Eagles, obviously, the 4th downs are driven by the tush push, and that's part of the efficiency there. But there are 2 teams in the Bills and the Chiefs. historically, when you look at third down numbers are volatile. Don't bounce back and up and down. And I think about like the Carson Wentz Eagles in 2017. But two teams who do a very good job of staving that off every single year and are consistently good on third down are the Bills and the Chiefs, because they have Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. So again, this is one of those other categories of what do we think Jayden Daniels is? Do we think he's going to be one of those guys? Because if he is, then the questions about some of this stuff matter a little bit less.
The interesting thing is, I'm not ready to lump Jayden in with those guys as a quarterback, but it's not a hot take to say he is uniquely infuriating to deal with on third and fourth down.
Absolutely.
And so, like, even if Washington doesn't convert 85% again, I would take my chances that they're going to be really good in those situations again, because they have Jayden Daniels at quarterback. And that just is that is a leg up when you talk about converting in those situations, between his ability as a passer, his maneuverability, his mobility, his ability to, make something out of a broken play. So that doesn't scare me. Like, banking on them to do it again scares me less when you have an athlete like that playing quarterback.
I get that. And I do think that there's a case to be made that they'll probably be able to be really good in those situations again because he is back there. All right, why don't we table Washington for now?
Yeah, I want to push them off to the side and talk to everyone else.
You guys are 1-1, and I'm kind of on the fence. I think it'll be easier to figure this out if we cross more teams off or we can throw more teams on definitively.
Okay.
Next one here, as we move through the Super Bowl odds, this is a fraught conversation considering the airstream of it all and everything that's happened this week in parking lots in Los Angeles. The Los Angeles Rams, Dave.
Oh, Jesus.
Do the Los Angeles Rams deserve a seat at the table?
Is it too reactionary to say that I'm officially scared?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. When you're pulling out the fake futuristic technology and medicine, I'm a little dubious, which is crazy, right? Because they were a team that was mediocre all of last year and then almost made the Super Bowl, if not for a little bit of snow, not letting Stafford move around in the pocket. And then we get here and I'm like, I don't know if I want to put them in anymore.
They had my guy stretching out on a wireless phone charger. That's what that table in that trailer looked like. I was like, what is this? Is he low on battery?
He is low on battery.
Yes,
I think
he
that's
is,
the problem.
actually.
Derek and I talked about this on a show. We did a training camp storylines wrap up while you were on the road. And what I settled on is that I'm not worried about Matthew Stafford's availability for week 1. But all of a sudden, when you talk, okay, forget the Airstream nonsense, but even we talked about this too. When you're missing joint practices, which is the Rams preseason, that's how they prefer to do this, that is an alarm bell to me. And all of a sudden, I'm really worried about Matthew Stafford playing 17 games in 18 weeks. And it's hard for me to put them on a list of contenders when I'm that scared of how fragile they could be. And we talked about it too. It's not just Stafford, right? It's Havenstein at right tackle. He's a 33-year-old player who's dealt with injury. Alaric Jackson, Robert, last time we talked about the Rams, you had a positive update on his health, but still a guy that
I think they were optimistic. I think they were optimistic, but it's still not certain, right?
So already you're worried about the quarterback and the offensive line, which have been the things that have led to the Rams' demise anytime during this Stafford era in LA. So if I'm already this worried about it before we've played a game, and that's not to say that they'll be a train wreck, they'll probably have healthy stretches. They've turned it on late in the season 2 years in a row, but can I count on that in August? I don't really want to sign up for that marathon where I'm just continually stressed about the injury report coming out of LA.
This is why they are also one of the weirder teams to talk about. I think if I was rating, if you told me as a guarantee we got the best realistic version of every team in the NFL, I would say the Rams are the 5th or 6th best team in the league.
But we don't have to do that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's but then I think about what is the percentage chance that we actually get that for enough of the season. I start to get a little bit more scared, and which is also weird because Sean McVay could probably still win 9 games and get them in the playoffs with Jimmy Garoppolo, right? But it's just that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about squeaking in. We're talking about can you get it done? And so I start to think about what is the percentage chance that we actually get the best out of all these guys when I still have a lot of questions about the secondary. I still have a lot of questions at linebacker. And then all your best players on offense outside of Puka are already dealing with health stuff or are like 30, some odd years old and are probably on the back half of their career now.
And Puka's always dealing with health
And
stuff. Dealing with
Puka's
health
always got
stuff is
something at
it's a
some point.
constant part of his life because of the way he plays. I'm with you in that the best version of the Rams absolutely deserves mention in a list like this. And Derek, the case you just made about, well, they were mediocre for most of the year and then they get into the playoffs and they're a couple plays away from the Super Bowl. We're already talking about a pretty tough needle that you have to thread before we start discussing the back status of a 37-year-old quarterback. Like, we don't have to do this. If we get into week 6 and he's fully healthy and they're rolling, we can revisit this. But the fact that he's in the Airstream right now working on his back and it's August 12th, no one is making us put them in here. We don't have to. I'm out.
Yeah,
I'm willing to revisit it a month into the season, but I'm out.
If we recorded this pre-Airstream, I would have them in. But now that we're there, I legitimately might also keep them out. I crossed them off initially, and I probably would keep them out.
I held off as long as I could, being worried. But yeah, the Airstream thing really threw me for a loop, man. And yeah, and I like Robert's reasoning. Like, again, the whole point of this exercise is that we can change our minds, but for who, for what? Like, why am I stressing myself out about all of this stuff that has to go right? And by the way, I know they dug out of it 2 years in a row, but this stuff has reared its head 2 years in a row. Like, they looked hopeless early in the season the last 2 years. And in 2022, they didn't dig out of it. So it's not like we don't have basis for these fears, right? Like, they've had to overcome a lot of just to be a playoff team recently. So if they do it again, I don't think anybody will be surprised, and I'm happy to revisit it, but I can't put them on a list like this right now.
It's going to be hard to prune this thing. It's going to be hard to keep a bunch of teams off this list. The 37-year-old quarterback has a back problem and had a setback in early August and still hasn't practiced. Feels like a good enough reason for me to keep them off the list.
That's a good reason, yeah.
All right, let's keep rolling through these here. Again, we're just kind of going through Super Bowl odds, and I feel like that's the general scope of how we're going through the list, so don't be mad at me for which teams come before others. Speaking of, I already alluded to this conversation a little bit earlier. I'm in Green Bay right now. Let's talk about the Green Bay Packers. Dave, I'll start with you, because I feel like starting with Derek is like a cheap one.
Yeah,
Do you think
I was going to say, you sure you don't want to
start at the table?
You don't want to start with Derek? I appreciated what you said a few minutes ago, Robert, about the Packers being like this theoretical team.
Schrodinger's team.
And I've been thinking about that a lot. And I came down on the idea that the Packers are like the prototype for what you want a modern NFL team to look like. Like, if your team was starting over from scratch, and I'm not talking about the specific personnel on the Packers, but just the way that they've built this team is really, really fun, right? Like, you got the young, athletic, rocket arm quarterback, 83rd percentile in his relative athletic score. He's aggressive as hell. Like, Jordan Love is like, he's the type of quarterback you want to watch play. Like, if you remove what team he plays for, he's just a fun guy to watch. He's Josh Allen-esque, even if they don't have a similar playing style. The offensive line in Green Bay is always good. They got a stable of pass catchers that they have invested a lot of capital in. Like, all these guys are top 100, whatever. Wicks was a 5th-round pick, but everybody else was a big pick. And then they just load the defense up with 1st and 2nd-round talents. Like, on paper, it all looks so awesome. And the pushback on that is we're in, year 3 of waiting for it to catch fire, and it hasn't quite happened yet. And those of us that like the Packers are waiting on it, and those of us that are tired of hearing about the Packers are probably sick of it by now. I still come down on the side of, like, eventually I think this is going to catch fire. And so I might not be as high on them as Derek is, but I ultimately put them on my list, and I feel pretty good about it. Like, I don't have a ton of questions about Green Bay other than why hasn't it been better yet? And maybe some of that is injury, right? Like, maybe that's not all on the Packers, but I don't have a problem signing up for another go round.
I'm trying to decide about how deep into this I want to get and whether or not I want to go over all of the points we talked about on the Half Baked Take show, or whether or not I just want to skip all of that. Because, again, that was a half-baked thought about what I believe is the nuclear potential of the Packers, because it's there. Like, it is there.
Of course it's there.
If all of these half steps get taken by all of these young players, that version of the Packers, I can see it, right? Like I can understand and believe that it happened. If you told me, if we fast forwarded and like somebody from the future came here and was like, "Hey, it's Thanksgiving. The Packers are the best team in the NFL." I wouldn't be like, "You." I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I can understand how that happened." But at the same time, I think Dave talking about the collective frustration from mostly, I think, fans of other NFC North teams being like, you guys are doing what's with the Packers again. I also get that side of it. And so there are two wolves inside of me right now. There's the wolf that believes in the Packers' potential and the fact that this is the year where it all takes a step. And there's like the chattering of everyone being like, you're a moron. Why are you taking the cheese again with this team? And I'm trying to figure out where I fall between those two things.
No, here's my argument. First of all, I think I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I think you're out of your mind if you were to keep the Packers off of this list. My argument is even if they didn't take any of those steps, they were so obviously a top 10 team in the league last year. Like it's like I don't even think it's a debate to me, and that doesn't mean that you have to say that they were like the third best team and that they would win the Super Bowl, but they were so obviously a top 10 team last year. And if Jordan Love's groin doesn't hurt for the first 9 weeks of the season, like to me this feels like I get why we all want them to be the 15-win Lions type of team, but I don't think we should let like impatience guard us from being like they absolutely deserve a seat at the table for this exercise.
I think you're right. I think my like self-reflection about not wanting to accelerate the timeline too fast has probably caused me to react too hard the other way over the last couple of weeks. This is a team that won 11 games 2 years in a row, right? I mean, like it's not
like
as if they
fourth youngest roster in the league last year.
But we can't keep doing this. We
Well,
can't keep being like, oh, they're so young, it's
so-
eventually going to happen. We keep doing this, and I'm trying not to do that again.
In terms of trying to like throw them over the Ravens and Bills and stuff like that, I think that's fine. But again, in terms of understanding like that that the floor for this team is really, really high, I do think that still matters.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Let me ask y'all this, because like we've talked so much about the potential. I don't think anybody needs that rehashed for them too much. But what would get in the Packers' way, other than obviously injury? But like, what would get in the Packers' way of being the idealized version that we daydream about?
I think what Derek is saying is exactly right. I think the floor, if they stay healthy, is very high. I think this is all about whatever the ceiling looks like, and that's probably a good reason they deserve a spot on this in an exercise like this. What would get in the Packers' way, as I understand that question, is what would prevent them from being like the best version of themselves. And I think that's we get to January, and they're a team full of B+ players that doesn't have true difference makers in the most important games of the season. And I think that probably starts with the quarterback. If the quarterback is the same guy, and I know he was hurt last year, but if no matter what factors were in play, if the outcome for Jordan Love in 2025 is similar to the outcome we got in 2024, and none of the other guys elevate into like truly elite players, they're probably not good enough to break through. Like they probably fall short of the goals organizationally they have for this year. But even if that happens, they still are probably one of the 10 best teams in the league.
Which I think goes
exactly. Thank you.
I think that goes back to my point of like why it's easy to fall in love with the Packers is like, it's just easy to assume that this collection of top 100 draft picks is going to grow and improve. And Edgerrin Cooper is going to be a better player this year than he was last year. And I haven't given up on Quay Walker, or like whoever it is that they drafted highly, that guy could be better. And some of that has happened, probably not enough. And like they need it to. Like they need those steps to be taken by some of these guys. That's the third year in a row we're saying it, but maybe this is the year. Hope springs eternal.
I mean, they had top 10 units on both sides of the ball last year. Like if they're the exact same team they were last year, they still deserve to be on this list of the 10 best teams in the league. And I think that's why I'm tempted to just throw them on, and then we can discuss the ceiling and what will either get them there or prevent them from getting there over the next month as we get toward the season and talk about all these teams individually. I don't think we have to decide that today.
Exactly. Like, again, maybe they never take the step into the Baltimore, Buffalo, Philly tier. But, like, I don't see how you could put 10 teams over them. That's my argument.
Derek, I don't even know if I'm going to say any of it on the podcast. I have so many things to tell you that are going to just put you over the top with like stuff I saw today. Like I almost
maybe I will put them with Baltimore.
I almost hesitate to tell you about like what Tucker Kraft looked like today at practice, and just like I'm not even going to do it. I'm not even going to do it. Like no one benefits from me divulging any of this to you. Okay, so we can all agree, even if the ceiling is still mildly in question, we think the Packers deserve a seat at the table.
Firmly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not thinking that hard about it.
Okay. So we have 8 teams now. We have the 5 consensus ones we talked about, the Niners, the Bengals, and the Packers. The Rams crossed off, Washington, TBD. Washington, we will revisit as we move through some of the rest of these teams. All right, these are going to be interesting as we move through the rest. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more teams that we're going to talk about here, okay? Let's move on to the Los Angeles Chargers. And I include them here because I kind of think this is an easy cross-off for me. I don't know how you guys feel about it. When you look at over-unders, they're at 9.5 with a lot of these other teams. They're at 25-1 to win the Super Bowl, which is just one step down from where the Rams and the Packers are. But there's enough of a question here about high-end talent, and with them missing Rashawn Slater for the entire season, where, I don't know, it's kind of like the Stafford thing to me, where I already had questions, and now we're going to lose a Pro Bowl, borderline all-pro left tackle from the start, and we're already wondering how many blue-chip players this team has. I think they're a no from me, Dave. I don't know if that's a little bit too harsh, but that's kind of where I sit right now.
I think this is a good place to state again for the record, we're not talking about making the playoffs, right? Like, I can imagine a world where the Chargers are a playoff team. That's not a big stretch. But if we're talking about the Super Bowl, about making a run through the playoffs and the types of teams you have to beat to get to the Super Bowl, I can't do it, man. And a big part of it, honestly, for me, is Rashawn Slater, because I think the version of the Chargers that makes that leap is supercharged by their offensive line. Omarion Hampton is running behind 2 all-pro caliber tackles, or at least Pro Bowl caliber tackles. Mekhi Becton looks great and juices the interior of the line. The play action comes together. The run game is hellish, and it buys Justin Herbert time to just not have to do everything himself. And that's already messed up. Like, not to say that their offensive line can't be useful. Joe Alt played left tackle in college. So like, I'm not throwing the Chargers on the scrap heap, but if the A+ version of this team has already taken a hit in August, it's tough for me. And they didn't do enough with the pass catchers for my taste in the offseason. The defense certainly isn't bad, but did they upgrade it? I don't really think so. You look at the division that they play in, where I don't want to speak for y'all, but I just go ahead and assume that they're not going to win the AFC West. It's tough for me. There's a lot working against it, and for that reason, I'm with you and I'm out.
The best case scenario for them is just not good enough. It's just not good enough. Like, the worst case scenario, I think, is better than most teams in the league, because like Harbaugh's a great coach. I think the defense is really well coached. Herbert is Herbert. They don't have the firepower. And some of that is the offense, right? Like, I think obviously losing Slater, that hurts them a lot. We saw what their pass rush unit can already, or their pass protection unit can already look like against Houston in last year's playoffs. And that was with those guys healthy. So I think you have that aspect of it. The pass catching core, unless Trey Harris is the best rookie receiver in the league, is not going to be any better than it was last year.
Oh, you don't believe in Keandre Lambert-Smith. That's your mistake here.
Maybe if he can be, if either there, I'll give it to them. If either of the rookies can be the best receiver in the league, then that's fine. And I really love Omarion Hampton, but yeah, if he's not going to be running behind a top 6 left tackle anymore, then I start to get a little bit scared about that. And then defensively, Robert, we talked about this earlier in the offseason. It's a really well-coached defense, and they have some solid players. They got fried by the best quarterbacks in that they played last year. Like, they gave up 40 to Baker Mayfield. In the playoff game, C.J. Stroud fried them. Lamar Jackson put up 30 on them. Joe Burrow put up 27 in that game, where it was just bombs away for a lot of that game. And I know, again, some of that was some of the injuries they were dealing with later on. But, like, the reality is most teams are going to get injured. And if you don't have the star power to help make up for it, I just get a little bit worried. So this is a team that I feel pretty confident will like be in the wild card or in the graphic on the last week of the season. It's just hard to imagine them lifting the trophy at the end.
I think questioning the ceiling is totally valid. And here's why I don't even feel bad leaving them off of this. The way they approached this offseason, I don't think they think that they're a Super Bowl team right now.
Right.
I mean, they're going at this in a very methodical way. Like how they're slow playing this and essentially saying, we're going to be a draft and develop team. That's where we're going to find our stars. Okay. That's a completely reasonable approach, but those stars have not emerged yet. Like, we did a study, I think it was 2 summers ago, me and Nate, just as an offseason idea of like, what are the component parts you need to win a Super Bowl? Like, how many blue chip players do you need? And I want to say we landed on like between 5 and 6. And that's like true blue chip guys. I don't think
Like
the Chargers,
all pro level talent.
all pro level like players.
Yeah.
The Chargers don't have that, right? Like it's Lad McConkey, maybe if Joe Alt takes a step, and then on defense it's Khalil Mack, but other than that, like maybe Derwin James, maybe Deion Henley takes a step, and then the quarterback is very good. But I just think there's too much necessary development from in-house players, and it's projection for them. Like the Packers, we've seen them be a top 6 offense each of the last 2 years. The Chargers, we have not seen that. There's enough inconsistency and holes and questions about the run game and the offensive line where I just think that there's way too much ground to make up to include them in something like this compared to the other teams that we're going to talk about. Even if we think the floor is high, the ceiling is limited enough where cross it off.
And again, especially, I think I would call Rashawn Slater a blue chip player, and you don't have him. You don't
That's
have
kind of
him
what I mean.
before
You're
played a
knocking
game.
one of
Yeah.
them
Gone
off
now.
Yeah. No, I don't love it.
Next one here. Let's stick in the AFC West. This one's going to be a tough one. Denver Broncos, Dave. Do the Denver Broncos deserve a seat at the table in your mind?
So Derek and I talked about Denver a couple weeks ago, and where I come down with them is I adore the long-term outlook for this team. Like over the next 2-3 years, I'm buying all the stock I can. Like I'm trying to get the Broncos cheap so I can sell high in 3 years for all of the cliche reasons. Like you got a good young quarterback who is 4 or 5 years away from costing you a lot of money. They've already done some good business this offseason, by the way, like not just Cortland Sutton, but Zach Allen too. Like you got 2 of your bigger players on both sides of the ball locked in for the long term. Nick Bonito is really the only free agent of consequence that you have to worry about next year. And they've got plenty of cap space. So this is a team that's already in a good spot and can really start cooking with gas here over the next couple of years. In 2025, I don't think that they have the juice to win the Super Bowl. Again, not talking about making the playoffs, not talking about winning 10 games, but to get through, especially in the AFC, where we can already assume that you will have to play a game against Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes or potentially multiple of those guys. I don't see it. I'm not blaming them because I love when teams approach these things responsibly, but if Evan Ingram and potentially RJ Harvey are your biggest investments on the offensive side of the ball, an offense that you're probably already not super excited about the skill talent. We know the offensive line is good, but the weapons, I can't get there. And same thing I said about the Chargers. I'm just going to assume that the best case scenario for you as the Denver Broncos is the 5 seed in the AFC. So you're probably not playing a home game the entire trip through the playoffs. I don't love it. I like this team a lot in the big picture. Right now, I don't see how they navigate an entire playoff field. But you tell me if I'm wrong.
All the teams that we've included so far, all of them. And I want to be careful here because I don't think this is like the barometer that we should use for quarterbacks, but I think it's worth mentioning here. All of the teams that we've included so far here, the quarterbacks on those teams have won playoff games. All of them. And I think have played well enough in the postseason to be like, oh yeah, I could see this guy playing and winning a Super Bowl. Jordan Love, I think, is probably the diciest among all of those because I think Purdy we've seen play in the Super Bowl. But Jordan Love, we saw Jordan Love destroy the Cowboys in the playoffs. Like, even if we're slightly concerned about his ceiling as a player, where he belongs in the hierarchy, all of that, I feel confident in saying he can play well enough against the best teams in the league for you to win a playoff game. We haven't really gotten that from Bo Nix yet. And I don't think that quarterback wins in the playoffs should dictate how we talk about teams. But when you're playing against the best competition, when things are imperfect for you, when you're having to play while pressured, when you're having to be a playmaker, when you're having to play in mucky pockets, what do you look like in the biggest moments of the season? We're not there yet with Bo Nix. Even if we believe he can get there, and even if we believe he showed a lot last year, it's still a big enough question mark for me to hold them off of something like this, especially when you compare them to all the teams that we just talked about, and even a team like Washington where we've seen it with Jaden Daniels.
I think for the most part, I agree. So if you guys are want to cross them off, I think that's fine. They were a team that I wanted to hold off at least until the end. And I'll try to make the optimistic case. I understand that this is an offense-driven league, and I have a lot of questions about whether the offense can take a step. I'm probably not as high on Bo Nix as other people, and I don't think they added like that much firepower unless you really think Evan Ingram is that much of a difference maker. And truthfully, the offensive line probably won't be as healthy as it was last year. Not because I think it's just by law of averages, they probably won't. My case for them is like, if I think there's a chance they can be the best defense in the league.
And there absolutely is.
And they absolutely could be the best defense in the league. They might have the best defensive player in the league. I mean, he literally won the award last year. That at least makes me be like, okay, I don't know if I can firmly put you in, but I at least want to like hold a small candle lit for them because I do think that matters a lot.
It matters a ton. And I think here's why for me. I'm a little bit hesitant when it comes to a defense first team throwing them in an exercise like this. I think if I was thinking about this the other day, like what sort of terms I would want to put this in when discussing defenses headed into the season. And the Broncos are a team that came to mind. The Seahawks are a defense that came to mind. The way that I would frame this is I think this team has as good a chance as any to be the best defense in the league. But that's as far as I'm willing to go with it. Like predicting how good defenses are going to be is so hard. Unless they are like the best defense in the league or the second best defense in the league. I still have enough questions about the offensive ceiling that I don't know in totality if it's enough in an exercise like this. Like if they're the fourth best defense in football, if they're just really good, I still think I have enough questions about the offensive ceiling where it holds me back a little bit compared to the offense first teams that we've talked about so far and might talk about again.
I probably do agree, but again, if you can have at least one thing that you can hang your hat on and I'm like confident you can win a game that way, it at least gives you something. But again, that's why that even if I ranked them 1 to 10, they'd probably be like 10th. But who's
the last defense first team that won a Super Bowl without overwhelming offensive talent? Right? Like the last year's Eagles were a defense first team. If you look at it, they were the best defense in football. Their offense was outside of the top 10 for most of the season. But at the end of it, when you get into the playoffs, they still had the best offensive line in football, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Saquon Barkley. Like, I just think as a defense-first team, it's just harder at this point. Because when you get to the playoffs, you are going to play the best. Think about the AFC. Think about what the AFC route to the Super Bowl is going to look like. Last year, you're going to play the Bills in the wild card round. You're going to play Baltimore in the divisional round, and you're going to play Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game. If your defense is what's driving that, I just think it's really, really hard to do that 3 times in a row. And I think the offense could get there, but we just haven't seen it yet.
That's the point I wanted to make is like, even in this day and age, even the best defenses in the NFL, like if you're going to put together a 4-game win streak in the playoffs, you're probably going to have, unless you are a truly generational type of defense. I mean, ironically, maybe the no-fly zone Broncos in 2015 were a defense like this. You're going to have a game where your offense needs to score 25 or 26 points. I mean, you see that pretty reliably. I mean, the Chiefs a couple years ago needed 27 to beat the Bills in the divisional round. The 49ers, as great as those defenses have been, needed 34 points to beat the Lions a couple years ago. Like, I don't think it's realistic in the modern NFL to think you're going to shut down 3 or 4 different opponents. And that's where I look at the offensive talent and I'm like, who's making those plays for you if you need them? Who's making your Brandon Ayuk ladybug catch to dig you out of a hole? You need that stuff. And I don't see it with the Broncos this year on that side of the ball, no matter how good their defense is.
And you know what? I'm fine letting the tiebreaker for this, for me personally, to just cross them off. If they were in the NFC, I think it would actually be easier to make the argument that if you're the best defense in the league, that can ride you through. But chances are, like you guys are saying, you're probably going to have to play 2 of Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow. It's hard to put down 2 of those guys with just the defense.
And listen, there may be the offense takes the step where we get to October and it's like, listen, the offense is good enough to keep up its end of the bargain. We should revisit this, but we haven't seen it yet. Like the offense was better than we expected last year. It was still a middle of the road to slightly below average offense. Like it's okay to not be fully bought in on that. This isn't a Packers situation where it's people talk about it being unrealized. The Packers have been definitively very good on that side of the ball for a while. The Broncos, there's just, to me, still way too much projection to throw them into something like this. All right, next one here. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Derek, do you believe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers deserve a seat at the table?
Easy no for me. Like they were one of my first ones.
Easy no.
Easy.
They were one of the first ones I crossed off. I
Why?
think the offense feels more flimsy to me than I wanted it to, just because of how old some of the receivers are. And again, best case scenario, if you tell like this offense could score 35 points a game, and that's fine. I think I struggle a little bit with like, can Baker Mayfield really win you enough playoff games? The Tristan Wirfs thing scares me a little bit, and I know that he'll come back, but if there's a chance that he's not 100% for the entire year, I think that really throws a wrench in it. And then like, I still generally buy the direction of this team because I think Baker's a fine quarterback. I like, drafting Emeka Egbuka. I think they have some other decent young players on both sides of the ball, but mostly offense. But like when you're going through the offensive coordinator change, your best player on offense might not play for the early parts of the season. And then the defense is a lot of like, I know they threw a lot of draft picks at it and signed Hassan Reddick, but that's a lot of prove it to me, man. And they also barely won this division last year over a hobbled Kirk Cousins. Like, I don't know. This to me is, I think they were kind of fortunate to win 10 games last year, and I don't feel that much strongly about them this year. Like, that much better.
Dave, I'm curious where you land on this.
The way we talk about a team that's won its division 4 years in a row every year is
They've won
wild
that
to me.
division.
You play the cards you're dealt, Derek. I get it. But hey, also circumstance matters in these conversations, and the Bucs have an easier road to a home playoff game and potentially a lot more than many other teams by virtue of playing in the NFC South. Maybe the Falcons can take it from them. I'm not saying it'll be a cakewalk, but like objectively, this is an easier division to win than many, many other ones. So I think that's a feather in their cap right off the bat.
I actually am glad that you think about that stuff more than I do, because I just straight up go in like, do I think this team is good enough? And I just don't think the Bucs are good enough. But if they can get, I don't know, the third or fourth seed, you get a couple of home games, like then maybe. But that part of it, means a little bit less to me, I guess.
Here's where I came down on this, and the Bucs were my first team off. I don't have them on my list, but it basically came down to this: is I like so much about Tampa Bay, man. Like, it should be one of the league's best offensive lines. For the purposes of this, I'm hoping and praying Tristan Wirfs will be available and will be good.
He plays 12 games in the games that matters, then it's going to be okay.
Exactly.
Right.
And on top of that, again, trying not to fall too much for training camp cheese, but when Todd Bowles, who is like one of the softest spoken, most boring head coaches in the NFL, and I know Todd, I've met Todd, love you, Todd. I feel like I can say that. You don't typically give great quotes. He's talking about Emeka Egbuka potentially being a wide receiver 1 in a lot of other offenses. Like, that carries weight to me. So now I'm sitting
They're
here
fitting
saying,
him for the gold jacket already, man.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, the talk coming out of Tampa about this guy is amazing. So all of a sudden, I'm a lot less worried about Chris Godwin not being all the way healthy. And so you've got the offensive line. I love Baker Mayfield. You've got great weapons in Tampa. I think the biggest question for me is, can Tampa maintain that level on offense? Because they were top 5 under Liam Cohen. They have to maintain that in addition to being much better on defense, because they were middle of the pack in basically all of the metrics. That's not terrible, but when Todd Bowles is your head coach, you're supposed to be able to hang your hat on a lot more than that. That obviously means Reddick's got to be a really good addition. So many of the guys on the back end have to hit. You're right about that, Derek. Like, it is stuff that has to happen, but I trust the personnel on offense. And I trust Todd Bowles to put together a nice defense. And when you combine that with the NFC South being where they're playing and what they have to win, I just think that's a really great starting point. Ultimately, I opted for Washington over Tampa because I think that highly of Jaden Daniels, but it was a very tough decision for me.
I really don't know what I want to do. I really don't know.
We can set them off to the side. That's fine.
All right,
with me.
let's talk through this, okay? I think some of my concerns about the Bucs are similar to some of my concerns about the Lions offense, where we had this unit where it was just so incredibly locked in. But we realized the best version of it schematically over the last couple of years. You swap out the offensive coordinator, what does that look like? I think it's fair to project some regression for each of those teams offensively. And for the Lions, that might mean going from the second best offense in the league to the eighth best offense. For the Bucs, maybe that means going from the fifth best offense to the 11th. One of the reasons I feel comfortable just putting the Lions in here is that I think the Lions defense is more than capable, even with a new coordinator. The talent on that side of the ball, to me, is more than capable of making up the difference if the offense slides. For Tampa, it's harder to tell myself that story because there's so much uncertainty on that side of the ball. So the 23rd ranked defense in the league last year by defensive DVOA. There is a path for them to be really good if the rookies hit, but we have absolutely no idea if that's ultimately going to happen. I think in the NFC, Dave, there is enough of a path, and I think outside of Philly, who have their own potential issues, right? Landon Dickerson's now hurt. We already are swapping out a right guard. They're swapping out pieces on defense. I don't think the Eagles are going to be the team this season that they were by the end of last season. I think it's going to be a small step back. I think there's a window of opportunity for another team to emerge in the NFC, and I'm open to the idea that the Bucs can be that. If Wirfs come back healthy, if Grizzard is 90% of what Liam Cohen was, if the young pieces on defense hit, but there's enough uncertainty there that I think I just want to wait and see, and we can revisit the Bucs conversation 6 weeks into the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's ultimately where I came down as well. Like I said, it was between them and Washington for me, and it's so many more ifs for Tampa Bay, right? Like, if their play caller is good, if Tristan Wirfs is healthy, if if Mike Evans doesn't fall off a cliff, not that I expect him to, if the young players on defense hit, if Hassan Reddick can recapture some of his old form, then this could be a really special team. It's way less scary to just say, well, if Jaden Daniels is the man, then Washington will be really good. Like, it's it's a less terrifying proposition for me, as opposed to hoping that 3 to 5 things go right for Tampa Bay. So that's ultimately why I left them out, but I'm very bullish on the Bucs, and I won't be surprised if I'm chomping at the bit to revisit this conversation 6 weeks into the season.
That's kind of how I feel too. And I was ready to be more excited about them than I ended up being. I just think there's enough to hold me back, and these spots are tight enough that I just can't get all the way there. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. We can just cut
so
that.
we have 2 spots left, correct? Still?
Like fully open? I think so. Because we put
2 spots left. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Washington on the back burner now. So does that mean, according to your guys' list, that the last team that we're going to talk about, do you both have them in? That's the Minnesota Vikings.
Nope, you're forgetting one very important team, Robert.
Who am I forgetting here?
We talked about this. I told you I was going to bring another team.
Okay,
to the
so
mix.
now is the time to do it, because if you're not bringing another team to the mix, then Washington and the Vikings.
Then Washington does just get in. Okay.
I have questioned their offseason a little bit. I've been a little bit down on this team, but at the very least, I think you have to bring up Houston in this conversation.
Do you though?
I kind of think so.
I think so. I absolutely think so. And I'm glad you're doubting me, Robert, because I don't like the offensive line. You're changing offensive play callers. Joe Mixon hasn't had a training camp, and his backup is year 9 Nick Chubb. Like, I understand it. I get it. But at the end of the day, you have what I think is a blue chip quarterback and arguably the best defense in the NFL. And that carries a load of weight. Like, again, we're having the same debate as the Broncos, except I like CJ Stroud a hell of a lot more than I like Bo Nix.
And we've seen him do it. Like, we've seen him do it in the playoffs multiple times over.
My other point would be, and
wait. We've seen him do what? He had that incredible game against the Browns.
Like what you were talking about.
Okay, so is it just that game against the Browns?
I thought he played well against the Chargers, and I thought he played well against the Chiefs. His team let him down so unbelievably badly in that game. But like on an individual level, he played well in that game. And so we can make the argument that the rest of the offense around him is not going to be any better, and we're going to end up in the same spot. But if I'm just going, best defense plus X at quarterback, I feel a lot better about Houston than Denver, even if like the rest of the Denver offense I feel better about.
I get it. I get it.
I want to point this out. It's not just that. Okay, Robert, you talked about blue chip players and how many you need. I'm ready to say, okay, the Texans have a blue chip player at quarterback, in my opinion. I think it's fair to call Nico Collins a blue chip receiver.
Definitely.
You have Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter at edge rusher, and you have Derek Stingley. You have hosses at 4 of the 5 premium positions in football. Obviously, offensive tackle is a huge whiff, and that is why we are all terrified about the Houston Texans. But that is a pretty good place to start, man. And I'll point it out one more time. They don't play in that strong of a division. I mean, if we can talk about the merits of all those other teams, but they should have a leg up. If they are good, it is an easier division to win than a lot of other ones. So I think we gotta at least talk about them. We can't just blow past it.
I think you're right. I probably should have been more enthusiastic about including them here. Before we do this, the Vikings are our last team. As we narrow all of this down and you realize who's left, do we feel okay about putting Washington in and having it be between the Texans and the Vikings for the last one, or you guys not want to do that?
I think I like Washington and Houston more than I like Minnesota. So, yes.
I'm good with Washington. I'm good with Washington being in for sure.
Okay. So this comes down to Minnesota or Houston.
Mm-hmm.
This is a fascinating comparison. You just mentioned, I'm just imagining the depth charts in my head, okay? And I'm just imagining like what's green and what's red on the 11 spots. In Houston, there are 2 greens on offense. It's the quarterback and Nico Collins. I understand those are blue chip players. This is true, okay? I went to Texans camp 5 days ago. There are no set starters on the offensive line. 0.
Good. Not even Titus Howard? Or is he just like a position?
He was at right tackle the day I was there.
Okay, that's interesting.
They don't know who's going to start. This is not a problem in their minds. They're using this time to experiment. But it was August 7th, okay? So that's how unsettled that offensive line is. I think with better protection rules and more sound offense, we could get acceptable offensive line play from them. But oh boy, is that a question mark at this point. And as much as I want to believe in the quarterback, and I do, I still think there's enough uncertainty with every other aspect of that offense and a new offensive coordinator who I'm bullish on, but is still a new offensive coordinator. In Minnesota, it's the exact opposite. If you flash up the 11, there are 10 green ones and then 1 red one. So I guess that's the question. If we think both of these defenses are top 3-ish defenses, top 4-ish defenses, again, the framing of this team has as good a chance as any to be the best defense in the league, I think Minnesota and Houston probably both deserve mention in that conversation. So then the question becomes, is one quarterback you feel good about and no other guys except for one receiver, if 2 guys you feel good about, are they more important than 10 starters you feel good about, a question mark at quarterback, and a play caller we've seen do it before?
I hate that.
In January, yes. In January, yes. Like I kind of trust. I'm sure they both have the capacity to get to the playoffs. That's fine. But like I've seen CJ Stroud play really, really well in January, and I think the other thing is, I think the ceiling and the likelihood that this Texans defense is like a top 5 unit is higher to me than Minnesota's. I've talked about how I feel pretty icky about their secondary, and so that's what a lot of it boils down to me.
I just can't in good conscience call a team with a quarterback that's never played a Super Bowl contender. Even everything you just said is right. And like we've seen Kevin O'Connell do it. We've seen, I know, he came in halfway through the season, so it's a little bit different. But I mean, we saw the Niners do this with Brock Purdy to a degree. It's certainly possible, but winning the Super Bowl, we've never seen that with like a first-year starter.
I like CJ Stroud. But we're really going to do this? After last year, we're just going to say CJ Stroud with all other question marks on offense is good enough for this team to win a Super Bowl right now. You guys are willing to say that.
I just want to stay
given
for the record.
Other team we're talking about, yes.
Yeah. The Texans, with everything that went wrong for Houston last year, they won their division, won a playoff game, and gave the Chiefs a game. Obviously, they lost, but like they didn't get wiped off the field.
Let me repurpose what Derek just said. They won that division.
They did. Hey, like I said, you play the cards you're dealt, man. If you win that division, you still get a home playoff game, which that puts you in pole position to reach the divisional round at least. This stuff matters.
I understand that we've never seen J.J. McCarthy play. We had never seen Sam Darnold play well, and they won 14 games. And the offensive line is better. You guys understand why
I like the
still
argument.
Can't do it. I don't know, man. But how many times last year did I say that, like, even though the Vikings won that many games, I don't trust them when it's going to matter, and they fell apart when it mattered.
You
and obviously, I'm not saying
Texans'
JJ McCarthy
offensive
is going to
line
have
when
the
it
Sam
matters?
Darnold. I don't feel good about it, but I would at least rather have the percentage chance that I've seen CJ Stroud do some stuff. I also want to be clear: the top 8 teams on my list, those are my I would put money on them to go do it. These last 2 teams are just
Derek's like
well,
I
sorry,
will
buddy, this is a
good,
10-team exercise
to these teams.
Yeah.
Then
sorry.
I'd rather have CJ Stroud if it comes down to it.
Sorry,
Who's
these
gonna
are the
piss
rules.
you off? What's gonna piss you off more? What is going to piss you off more? Watching CJ Stroud try to navigate a very unideal situation, or watching the ups and downs of a first-year starter on a loaded offense? I don't know the answer to that. Neither one sounds fun if you've got pride riding on it.
At least the second one is interesting because there's an element of we don't know what we're gonna get. I've been frustrated already by CJ Stroud behind those types of offensive lines, but there's a part of me that again I want to see it with JJ McCarthy. And I will say, if they're the first team by like week 3 where I'm ringing the bell and we're like, okay, let's put the Vikings in, I could totally see that, where they're the first team I want to reinsert back into the list. But if we're working with this as a starting point of a living document, I would rather have D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud, yes.
Derek, do you trust Jalen Hurts in the biggest moments of the season? Here's where I'm going with this, and I don't want this to be... Okay,
if I didn't
finish your thought.
Even if I hadn't, I have already seen Jalen Hurts be dragged towards the Super Bowl already. I haven't seen that from JJ McCarthy and the Vikings.
I just think, and here's why I framed it this way. Even
you
if
almost
you
got
have
me
questions about the quarterback, and because what you were about to say is the rest of the team is so good that you feel good about them being able to get there. Can't we do that with the Vikings? It isn't the rest of the team potentially so good that even with a question at quarterback, you can still do this. I cannot in good conscience put a team on there where I know who none of the starters on the offensive line are in the position they will play, with a first-year offensive coordinator, Christian Kirk, and another rookie receiver with Nick Chubb playing running back. I can't do it as much as I love CJ Stroud. Do you guys understand that?
I absolutely understand that, but I think in both of these cases, you have to bet on something that has no proof of concept yet. I'm leaning to, it's a matter of which proof of concept are you a little bit more willing to take the risk on.
I just feel like Robert is deeply hurt by how south things went for the Texans last year.
That's exactly right.
What this
who
feels
is it?
like to me.
I am dramatically overcorrecting from where I was at with CJ Stroud last year. Do I still believe that CJ Stroud is going to be very good? And in my heart, do I want to wholeheartedly agree with you guys? Absolutely. I just can't do it. So am I just going to lose here? Is it 2-1 where you guys are both picking the Texans over the Vikings? Because I just don't understand how you guys can look yourselves in the mirror and feel good about that.
I think we all agree nobody feels good about anything that's happening here. But ultimately, and it's not just a quarterback game, but the known commodity who I believe to be excellent at quarterback, combined with that defense, combined with, again, I'm the one that keeps bringing this up, but hey, the Texans have to win the AFC South, and the Vikings would like to win the NFC North to get the home playoff game and the home field advantage and all that good stuff. Have fun in that division, guys. I would way rather try to win the AFC South. So yes, I hate myself, but I'm rocking with Houston here.
I feel so gross about this, but honestly, the division is enough of a tiebreaker for me just to say, fine, we'll put the Texans on. I
Okay.
can't. People are going to be furious about this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Furious
Us
about
putting
this.
the Texans in over a team that just won 14 games
Yes.
with a first-round quarterback.
And
They're going to be mad, but
I want
whatever.
it firmly on record about how against this I am.
Okay, this team didn't win 14 games. That team, it's a different team. If JJ McCarthy comes
it's better.
out,
The other players are better.
Yeah, that was...
if JJ McCarthy looks amazing, I like the Vikings. I will have no problem changing this quickly. I don't think it's crazy to want to see proof of concept. I think it's insane to just say, screw it. The quarterback doesn't matter. I know that's taking it too far for me. To say they're a Super Bowl contender with a guy who's never appeared in the regular season is a bridge too far.
So you want to see proof of concept, and that's why you're putting in the offense where we know who 3 of the players are and the first-year play caller is involved.
My proof of concept is that CJ Stroud and Nico Collins kick ass. That part I'm confident in.
I'm pumped about them in the 2-on-2 football league. They're going to fucking crush it.
They're going to be great. Listen, when the NFL starts to look like NFL Street, the video game, they're going to be incredible.
Do you know how much it sucks that I have to be like the anti-CJ Stroud guy now because you guys are pushing this too far the other way? I can't believe this is the role that I have to inhabit, but I'm standing in for the listeners. That's what I'm doing.
Somebody had to, because I was not going to do that.
I genuinely love that, and I'm not being facetious at all. Like, football is in a place where it's not an insane take to think that JJ McCarthy could take this team to a Super Bowl. Because, 10 years ago, we would never be having this conversation. But development has gotten good enough, coaching has gotten good enough, the players have gotten good enough that, that is a realistic thing that we're talking about, which is wild.
That's why I can't. That's why it's hard for me to pick the Texans in this, because even with the question about the quarterback, and it's obviously a huge, glaring question, I'm not dismissing or discounting that, but we've seen what situation does for these players. Sam Darnold was gone. He was in the wilderness, and he threw 40 touchdowns last year.
Okay. Sam Darnold, though, I know he wasn't good, but he played a lot of football between 2018 and 2024.
I know. I don't.
That's a huge difference.
I don't even think that JJ McCarthy has to be as good as Sam Darnold was last year for the Vikings offense to be better than it was last year. With better offensive linemen, with all those weapons back, I think JJ McCarthy can be like a middle of the road NFL quarterback and still have this be one of the best 10 offenses in the league because of everything else that's around him. And I think that is actually more likely than so many aspects of the Texans offense coming together, even if the quarterback is the most important piece.
It might be because, like you were saying earlier, defensive-driven teams don't necessarily win the Super Bowl that often. I think that is a little bit different than Denver because CJ Stroud can be that good. It's also, but to me, it's let's say he's not quite as good as Sam Darnold, and maybe in theory the offense is better. How often does the 23rd best quarterback in the league win a Super Bowl? I guess just that to me is where I get a little bit I don't know.
Here's the last question I'll ask. I'm willing to concede this. I'm willing to lose. Would you be more surprised on Thanksgiving, this deep into the season, if the Texans or the Vikings had the 8th best offense in football?
More surprised that they were that good.
Yeah.
I would probably be more surprised that it's the Texans. But I think, ultimately, when you get to the postseason, it's do I just trust the quarterback to nut up for a month?
All right.
I kind of do.
I'm willing to concede this, but I just want you guys to know I just won the argument. I'm willing to give this to you guys, but I just won the argument.
Respectfully, no, you didn't. Because, again, we're not talking...
The Eagles were
we're
the
not
15th
talking
best
about
offense.
being good.
Yeah, it's not about being good. It's about, what do I feel like the best month of play can look like? And
I'm willing to back down. I'm willing to back down. Okay. So the Texans are on our list. Jesus Christ.
I want to be clear. I went in not having them on the list. And as I went through my exercise again, I was crossing a bunch of teams off. And I think I felt good about 8 teams, which it was the 5 that we mentioned, and then the Niners, the Bengals, the Packers. And then for the last 2, I was kind of just I like the quarterback. I like one other thing.
The speed at which I'm going to run away from this on social media, this is the fastest you'll have ever seen anybody move when this list gets released here over the next 24 to 48 hours.
It is funny, which I know we need to wrap up, but it is funny that we're opting for the Texans over the Bucks. Like, really, the Vikings doesn't move me. Like, I need to see something from the quarterback there. But yeah, I mean, the Bucks have a lot of the same advantages as the Texans without the debilitating questions on offense. But I think we all like CJ Stroud more than we like Baker Mayfield.
Which I don't even know if we should like him that much more than Baker
That's
Mayfield,
fair.
considering other
We
questions.
like the Texans defense more than we like the
All right,
Bucks
so
defense.
let's
though.
open
Hold
this
on
up
there.
very. Okay, that's fair. That is fair. The Texans defense part, I think, is fair. We don't have time to re-legislate this. Like the decision has been made. We went too long on this on the Texans Bucks. Let me do it again. 5, 4, 3. We don't have time to re-legislate this. This is done. It's you guys. You guys have made your bed with the Texans. You don't get to backtrack now.
The die is
I don't want
cast.
to. I don't want to. I'm good.
All right. So here are our 10 teams that have a seat at the table at the beginning of the season: Eagles, Chiefs, Ravens, Bills, Lions, Niners, Bengals, Commanders, Packers, Texans. Okay.
Nobody said it was gonna feel good. That's the point. That's
it should
why
feel
we did,
better than this.
That's why we did 10.
As a reminder, this is a living, breathing document. We can update this at any time, and when any show, any moment, somebody gets to raise a hand and make their case for why one team should be in and one team should be out, and we will go through the judgment process on the spot. Any moment. Sunday night, you hit the buzzer, it's on. And so I'm very excited about having those conversations over the course of the season. I hope you guys enjoyed the absolute mess that this show was. I know I had a good time. I hope you guys did as well. We'll be back with plenty more this week. Slight change in schedule. We are not going to have a show on Thursday this week, just based on travel and things like that and training camps. We're going to have a show on Friday. And again, because of travel, we're going to be pushing our week 1 preseason reaction show, just so we had a little bit of time to rewatch and talk about some of these guys. We're going to do a first impressions from the preseason show on Friday. So it'll be before the second slate of preseason games change. It's just kind of how my travel fell this week. We wanted to talk about those games. We just couldn't fit it in any earlier than that. I'm going to be at the Bears tomorrow. You guys don't care. But we're going to have a preseason week 1 reaction on Friday, and then we'll be coming back with 2 beat writer notebooks later into the weekend. Very excited about that. And then starting next week, baby, it's division preview time. A week from today, our first division preview will be out. It will be available to you, and then we'll have 1 a day all the way up to the regular season, 1 a weekday. So be on the lookout for those. Very excited about digging into those. For now, that's all we got. Appreciate you guys listening. We'll talk to you very soon. Thanks for watching The Athletic Football Show. Subscribe to the channel to keep up with us. Like and comment on this video, and we'll see you next time.